And as Oscar said also, we believe we will be sold out within a week. With the tickets are going to be on sale on this Saturday, October the 23rd. And so we have a little over 16,000 places. And I'm telling you, it's a hot ticket in town now. Now I would like you to introduce the trainer of Jean Pascal. He's been with him since Jean was 14, 15 years old. He led Jean to become 7-time Canadian champion, got him to the Olympic Games, turned pro with him in 2005 and worked with him until now became the WBC in the Ring magazine light heavyweight champion. Mark Ramsey is a young and very, very competent trainer, and his strength, besides being very close and know exactly what Jean needs to be prepared, he's got a great team around him. And to talk about that great team, I would like to ask one of his team members, is a catman, a counselor, one of the most important part of the team. You know, when Jean Pascal fought Adrien Diacono for the rematch, he had his shoulder dislocated 3 times. And this man put that shoulder back the 3 times to make sure that Jean was going to be able to go on and finally win the fight convincingly over 12 rounds. So this man is Mr. Ross Amber.
Thank you, New York. It's great to be here. And the first thing I want to tell you is just to give you a little idea of what's happened over the last few days. In boxing, we've been so used to seeing the trash talking and the chair throwing, podium pushing nonsense that goes on, which reduces our sport to a sideshow. But when you're surrounded by greatness, like we've had a chance to be over the last couple of days with Bernard and Oscar, to me, this is what professional athletes are all about. And, you know, I tip my hat to them and of course to Jean as well, but them being the leaders and the greatest names in the game of what class can mean to a sport like ours and how important it is. And you guys bring that to the table tenfold. I agree with Brother Nazim in how a fighter is developed. I agree with Brother Nassim that you cannot teach a fighter what to feel. He doesn't know when he's going to step up into that ring and what he's going to face. Any more than Bernard knew when he first stepped up, or Oscar knew when he first stepped up. Any more than Jean knew when he stepped up. Well, what is it that defines greatness in a fighter? Greatness in a fighter is defined by fighting great fighters. The knock against people who proclaim themselves to be great fighters, and yet the public doesn't acknowledge that, is because they don't step up and face great fighters. Bernard Hopkins is motivated to fight Jean Pascal because Jean Pascal has the ring belt, and Bernard Hopkins wants a challenge. Bernard Hopkins is motivated by challenge. He has been his whole life. He's defied the odds, and he still continues to defy them by taking on these young guys and beating them. The thing is, this nut over here is motivated by the same thing. He could have chose anybody else in the division to fight. He had the title, could have picked anybody else as, I want Bernard Hopkins. Why? Because in order to achieve his goal of greatness, he realizes he has to beat greatness. And I defy anybody in this room right now to pick somebody else in the light heavyweight division after we've already beaten Chad Dawson that is greater than the man sitting right here. Jean Pascal's career, his life is motivated by achieving what people say he cannot do. And he doesn't only just say it, he wants to go out and prove it, and puts the added pressure on himself to make himself perform. He fought Adrien Diacono. Now, after the fact, everyone says, oh, well, Jean handled that quite easily. But people forget, Adrien Diacono was the undefeated light heavyweight champion of the world who Chad refused to fight. As a matter of fact, gave up the title to avoid fighting Diacono. Jean stepped up from super middleweight division to challenge Diacono and beat him. Then after defending his mandatory, which he had to do, and fulfilling his responsibilities as champion, turned around and said, okay, I'll give Diacono a rematch. Gave him the rematch, beat him again, and then took on the man who was considered by scribes here, most of you people who write in the media, Chad Dawson, number 4 pound for pound fighter in the world, and stepped up to fight him. Again, could have moved, could have fought somebody else, could have got a few title defenses under his belt, but he didn't do that. He went after Chad Dawson, and as a 4-1 underdog, beat Chad Dawson. That's a great achievement. And that was only in August. This is, again, many similarities between Jean and Bernard is the throwback attitude. August he fights Chad, now he fights Bernard. Those are things that were reserved for the 1940s and 1950s. That doesn't happen anymore. Robinson fights LaMotta, then fights Jackie Wilson, then fights LaMotta again in 21 days. I know we're not going that far, but... These guys are motivated by greatness. And Jean wants greatness on his record. And he's doing it not just by talking, but by results in the ring. And I know that the talk, and Bernard has been around the game long enough, the talk is all going to be cheap. It's not going to mean anything. All it means for one thing now is that it's for real that Jean wanted Bernard and they're going to fight. And they're going to fight December 18th. A lot of people have used the word, and I said this before, so I don't mean to sound redundant because you guys have heard this, but a lot of people throw the word around of Bernard being a throwback fighter. But no one ever defines what that means, a throwback fighter. In my opinion, and the greatness that's Bernard, a throwback fighter means you could have taken this guy and put him in any era of boxing at any time in that middleweight division, and he would have rivaled the greatest fighters of any era. That's a throwback fighter. And what we've got here on this side is a young guy who doesn't have the road record yet that Bernard has, but a young guy who is following and emulating what this guy has done by taking on the very best. And what Oscar did, taking on the very best, and that's what Jean Pascal's doing, is taking on the very best. And you'll see the very best December 18th. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, New York. It was great, and we look forward to seeing you on the 18th. God bless you.